are able to officially kick off. Welcome Unit 3 to the We the People National Finals. My name is Emily Voss. I am the We the People Coordinator for Virginia. And in just a moment, I'll have our judges introduce themselves. They'll ask you to introduce yourselves and your teacher. And then they will go through the process that I'm sure you know backwards and forwards. So they'll read you your question, you'll respond with your prepared statement, and then they'll ask you follow-up questions from there. Okay, so with that, I think we are good to get started. So judges, please take it from here.
Okay, well, I'm sure you knew all that, but Emily has to tell us that each time, so we'll remember it. My name is Joe Stewart. I teach in the Political Science Department at Clemson University in South Carolina. Been judging We the People for a very long time. I really do enjoy this. I want you to relax. We're going to have a lot of fun today. We're going to learn from you the things that you have learned about the Constitution.
I'm Mike Miles. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama, and I'm a fan of a football team down here, and Joe teaches at a team that our team plays sometimes, and I like him so much and enjoy judging with him so much that Alabama can play Clemson and we could still go to dinner that night. It wouldn't be any problem at all. Zach, you brought a pretty smart bunch here, it looks like, so we'll be glad to listen to them educate us, because at least this member needs it, I'll guarantee you. Dr. Rogers?
Hi, I'm Donald Rogers. I taught history at Central Connecticut State University before I retired last year. I've been with We the People for a long time myself. It's a great program, as you probably know, and my observation is students to participate in this program, they go off to big things. And so we're going to see you launch your big things today. So look forward to hearing your comments.
Please introduce yourselves and your teacher.
Hi, my name is Sabrina Rivera, and I am covering for one of my colleagues today who was unfortunately unable to be here.
Oh.
Hello, my name is Crystal Ochoa.
Good afternoon. My name is Amanda Mraz. We attend Chicago Hope Academy and are representing the state of Illinois. And we are coached by our teacher, Mr. Zach Maslenka, and we're so excited to testify in front of you.
Okay, well, great. Well, welcome. And particularly Sabrina, thank you for filling in for your colleague there. It's kind of the, we'll talk later how much notice you got on this. Yeah. That's great. Well, we are going to discuss question 1 today. So I will read that question and then we'll listen to your response. It begins with a quote from Oliver Wendell Holmes. I do not think the United States would come to an end if we lost our power to declare an act of Congress void. I do think the Union would be imperiled if we could not make that declaration as to the laws of the several states. What impact has judicial review had on federalism? Is judicial review a counter-majoritarian practice? Please support your position. And what limits, if any, would you place on the practice of judicial review? You may begin.
Federalism is the division of power between federal and state governments. McCulloch versus Maryland defined federalism when the Supreme Court ruled that it was unconstitutional for Maryland, a state government, to tax a national bank. This court case defined the relationship between the federal and state government. The Judiciary Act of 1789 established the federal court system, which is composed of district courts, appellate courts, and the Supreme Court. Federalist number 78 states, it proves incontestably that the judiciary is beyond comparison the weakest of the 3 departments of power. Since the judiciary does not deal with finances, it is not a threat and therefore may obtain judicial review. Judicial review was established in Marbury v. Madison in 1803. Article 3 of the Constitution implies that the Supreme Court justices have the authority to exercise judicial review. The Supreme Court has incorporated the Bill of Rights to the states through judicial review, known as selective incorporation. Some argue that judicial review gives the Supreme Court too much power over Congress and state legislators due to its ability to determine if laws are unconstitutional. However, judicial review is essential to the system of checks and balances. Individual state governments, the President, and Congress are held accountable through judicial review, in which limits are placed on the legislative acts and executive orders.
Just as Alexander Hamilton argued, we believe that judicial review is not a council majority in practice. In Fed 78, Hamilton argues that the judiciary, from the nature of its functions, will always be the least dangerous to the political rights of the Constitution. Because the judicial review is composed of unbiased members who can only exercise judgment based on the Constitution. Hamilton also considers the independence of the judiciary vital to our government because it is meant to protect rights by defending the Constitution. One reason people consider judicial review a council majority in practice is that Supreme Court justices, who according to Article 2 of the Constitution are appointed by the President and confirmed by the Senate, have the authority to declare legislative acts created by elected legislators unconstitutional without the consent of the people. Though this is true, it would be illogical to let the power of judicial review lie in the hands of the politically influenced legislative or executive branch because, according to Hamilton, the judiciary, on the contrary, has no influence over either the sword or the purse. The Supreme Court's power to exercise judicial review is not a council majority in practice because it gives the judicial branch the consent to constitutionally check the powers of the executive and legislature.
We would not place any limitations on judicial review. The practice of judicial review has helped overturn several lower court cases that have made an impact today. One of those court cases was Roe v. Wade. In Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court ruled that states' laws prohibiting abortions were unconstitutional due to it being a violation of women's privacy under the 14th Amendment. Roe v. Wade is one example of how impactful the use of judicial review is because this one case expanded the rights of women. Another court case that was overturned by the judicial review was Brown v. Board of Education. In 1954, the Supreme Court ruled that state laws that establish racial segregation within public school systems are unconstitutional, regardless of if the segregated schools were separate but equal, because it violated the protection of equal protection clause of the 14th Amendment. The court case marked a turning point in history that allowed the school system to be diverse and integrated today. Additionally, in the Supreme Court case McDonald versus Chicago, McDonald argued that his Second Amendment rights were being violated and that he should be able to bear arms. The Supreme Court ruled that an individual can keep and bear arms is protected in the Second Amendment and is incorporated to the states by the 14th Amendment's due process and privileges and immunities clause. Judicial review is important because it protects our rights from the federal government and only allows cases to be overturned when the case's argument is unconstitutional. Thank you. We are now ready for your questions.
Okay, well, thank you. You talk about using Federalist 78 as a source, the court as the weakest of the branches of government. Do you think that position is correct, and why or why not?
I believe that in today's time, it's not totally accurate because our Supreme Court system has turned slightly political, though it shouldn't. One example of this is through court packing, where the president has the ability to add additional Supreme Court justices and shift the dynamic of the court to either liberal or conservative.
Mike, you're muted.
That's 3 times in a row. I'm sorry, Joe. Y'all have a very special distinction in the competition this year. You're designated as the Warren Burger class, I believe, which is very special. They let really good teams carry that distinction in the competition, and congratulations to you for that. Would Warren Burger have agreed with the things you said about the judicial branch being the weakest of the 3 and several other things that were in your essay that he would have had comments on? Would he have agreed with what you said, or would he have thought you were selling him short?
Earl Warren was was really heavy in judicial activism. He lasted, I think he was in office for 15 years, and he really did shift the dynamic of the Supreme Court to what it is now. He ended segregation in US public schools and expanded constitutional rights to defendants. He even paved the way for legislation on abortion. So I believe that he would agree with what we're saying. But yeah, before he entered office, the Supreme Court wasn't as powerful as it is today.
What about Warren Burger? What about Chief Justice Burger? Earl Warren was Chief Justice before Warren Burger. What would Warren Burger think? I think that he probably thought they were more powerful than I think they are, but I don't think he liked judicial. I think he thought judicial restraint was more important than some other people did. Dr. Rogers.
Now let's take this in a different direction. So if we go back and look at the quotation, now the quotation says two things from Justice Holmes. One is that if the US Supreme Court lost its power to declare acts of Congress unconstitutional, I mean, no more Marbury versus Madison, the Union would survive. But if the court did not have the power to strike down state laws, then that would disrupt the country, disrupt the Union. So he's saying that state legislatures are more dangerous than Congress, and the court needs to rein them in. What do you think about that? Do you agree with him?
I agree, as state legislators have a lot of power for their state. They are able to kind of influence on different state laws and different state acts. So I feel like at certain times, state legislators can be dangerous, as they can have more influence and kind of make more decisions for the state under their behalf and under their thoughts and what they think is good for the community.
Do you have any
That may be
examples?
an understatement of all time. Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, any examples you might give of that, where state legislatures have run amok?
Could you repeat your question, please?
Right. So, I mean, can you think of any cases, any examples where state legislatures have done something really bad, and it's good that the Supreme Court had a chance to step in?
Yes, in Gideon versus Wainwright, we saw an example where a man was not given an attorney, and the case was taken to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court then selectively incorporated the Sixth Amendment, the right to a jury, and overturned that case and said, no, it was wrong that the state court didn't grant him an attorney, because that's a right, that's a right.
You talked some about court packing. Do you think and we hear that in the news a lot today, should there be more, what would be the advantages and disadvantages of adding more justices to the Supreme Court at this point? Would you suggest adding or subtracting, or just leave it the way it is?
If we add more justices currently, it would shift from one position to another. For example, currently 5 out of the 9 justices are conservative, and Democrats are introducing legislation to change the number of the Supreme Court justices from 9 to 13, where Biden could appoint 4 more liberal justices to shift our court dynamic. And it would work well into a unified government, because everyone would then be on the same page and have the same views.
Are there any shortcomings of that? What happens let's say the Republicans regain control of the Senate in 2022. President Trump comes back and wins re-election in 2024. Would that shift the dynamics also?
I believe that most times court packing is looked at as this thing where they are trying to pack the court to more justices. And we see that through FDR during his presidency. We see how he packed the court to up to 15 justices in order to kind of tilt the political advantage he had. So I feel like the shortcomings of that would be that there would kind of be different sides, and there would be more of a political advantage to try to get people on his same side or the same side of the president's beliefs in order to kind of keep running and get passed over acts and laws that would kind of be in his own mindset.
Emily, I would ask him one, but are we about out of time?
You've got 4 seconds, so
Well,
we can.
Yeah,
That's what I got time to do right here.
Yeah, that's right.
Do that.
yeah, I was gonna say, I've worked with Mike many times. He can't clear his throat in
Oh,
4.
not in 4 seconds. No, I'm shy.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your presentation today and the work that you've clearly put into this. And Sabrina in particular, thanks for jumping in here on another team. You took a clear position on using the Federalist Papers as authority for the court's position. And you tied this in well with checks and balances, which is a good thing to do. You were able to talk about some examples of cases: Roe versus Wade, Brown versus Board, McDonald versus Chicago, all incorporation cases, and those are good examples to use. Wish we'd had a little bit more time to talk about unbiased judges, because I'd like to know what one looks like when I see one. These are, I tend to argue that judges are political actors, and the kind of controversy that we've seen over time goes back to George Washington, that he had some problems with his appointments also. Very good point about court packing. Yeah, you mentioned that Roosevelt, FDR wanted to increase the size to 15. He didn't just pick out the 6 as a number. His official justification was he wanted to appoint a new justice for every justice over the age of 70. So he was just trying to help these old people out. The fact that it gave them 6 more appointments, that was just, who knew? That was also a great example of where it wasn't going anywhere. John Nance Garner, his vice president, was standing over on the side of the Senate when the bill was introduced in the Senate, holding his nose and doing a thumbs down signal. I always ask my students to think about if President Biden goes forward with a plan to add more justices to the Supreme Court, but Vice President Harris stands off to the side, holds her nose and does a thumbs down. I suspect we would. That, speaking of things that would go viral, that would be one of the things we'd be seeing a lot of also. So, but good job. I thought you did a good job. I would urge you, if you're the Warren Burger team, to make sure you know a little bit more about Warren Burger. All in all, I thought you did a good job. I enjoyed our discussion this afternoon.
Yeah, I did too. There's a word in the question, counter-majority. Let me read the word exactly right. Counter-majoritarian. Isn't that what the Constitution kind of is? Dr. Rogers used the expression, legislatures run amok. If you want to see that, get on I-65 and come south, stop in Montgomery, and I'll take you to the gallery and you can watch the whole thing. That's what we do. And then the court says, well, that was nice. I mean, our legislature passes bills saying we exempt ourselves from a federal law that was just passed. And they go home and brag that they did it, and then they wait 2 years and the federal courts get around to saying, no, of course you can't do that. I think that is sometimes Dr. Stewart and I were judging the group one day where they kept saying that the Constitution is a document written to protect ourselves from each other. And, you know, that's really pretty close. Fix that. Don't make us have to protect ourselves from each other. Pull us together more than we are, and let the majority be in agreement of what the court has to do sometimes, because we're not discriminating against each other quite as bad. The last thing I would say is I've got a meeting I'm supposed to go to tomorrow that I really don't want to go to. Sabrina, could you fill in for me tomorrow at my meeting? I would really appreciate it. If you could fill in for me as well as you did today on that little time, that little warning, there'll be the people in the meeting I was supposed to go to will be very happy that you were there instead of me. I would appreciate it. Dr. Rod.
So I thought it was a good presentation. I didn't notice that anybody was filling in. So you all were very smooth. I'm the historian, so I loved your opening. You started with what is federalism, how did it get started, what's McCulloch versus Maryland about. I mean, it's a very good start. I like the way that you did that. You had good examples, discussion of Article 3, working from the Federalist Papers, Alexander Hamilton, modern cases where Supreme Court struck down state laws, Roe, Brown, McDonald. So you know a lot. And I was very impressed with that and with your detail. One place where you might have expanded your horizons a little bit is sort of on the theory of how the constitutional system is supposed to work. And that's where my question about, when I went back to Holmes's point, saying, when Holmes said, well, you know, I wouldn't be too bothered if we couldn't overrule the acts of Congress. So he's saying I could give up that form of checks and balances. We said, no way do I want to give up the right to strike down state laws. And so what Holmes is saying there is he's saying is that, you know, in this Constitution where there are a lot of checks and balances, that sort of this balance between the federal government and states, that's a really important one. You know, and you could have brought that out a little bit more, and you had examples at your fingertips, you know, where the Supreme Court struck down the states. Brown versus Board must be the classic example, you know, striking down Jim Crow laws, beginning with segregated education. So you've got really good examples, but sort of understand how that fits into the theory of how the Constitution is supposed to work. That's going to give you a more powerful argument. So thank you a lot. I enjoyed it. I learned, and I wish you luck as you go forward.